Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and make sure that you are subscribing to Rumble or YouTube, because, hey, we're back on, or anywhere you stream the audio podcast so that you make sure to never miss an episode. Today, we could be talking about inflation, we could be talking about the border, we could be talking about Joe Biden's utter failure to even act remotely responsibly as the president of the United States. But no, conservatives are talking about gun control. And that's exactly the problem, because the left is trying to distract you from all of the important issues and keep conservatives on the defense instead of offense. Democrats know that they have absolutely nothing to run on in November because of how incredibly, insanely failed Joe Biden and his administration and the Democratic-led Congress has been over the last year and a half. So now they're trying to have to fabricate all of these other issues so that we think that our Second Amendment constitutionally protected rights to keep and bear arms are suddenly under some kind of scrutiny, and oh no, we are this close to losing our constitutionally protected rights. So instead of talking about free speech, instead of talking about abortion and the pro-life decision that will be handed down very soon in the Dobbs case, instead of talking about what the Supreme Court has issued in terms of opinions today, no, conservatives are squarely focused on gun control. This is the wrong thing to be focused on, but here is why. Matthew McConaughey, who is an actor, gave an outstanding and quite brilliant performance yesterday in the White House in the press room to a bunch of reporters, didn't even take questions, and he read a script. And so many conservatives actually were moved by his emotional rendering of these incredibly tragic stories. And I grant you that no one is saying that any school shootings are just acceptable in society like any other murder or any other heinous crime. No, but our response to that cannot be based on an emotional response from an actor who was simply acting. It has to be logical, reasoned, and fully constitutional. So instead of conservatives getting wound up and saying, wow, these are emotional stories and maybe we need to do something, we need to actually look at what the Democrats are trying to do, which is to distract us by these emotional stories and keep us on the defensive. I will never apologize for standing firmly in defense of our U.S. Constitution and every guaranteed right that comes from God, my creator, not my government. If we understand that our rights are pre-political and they're inalienable, then we understand that our government has absolutely no authority to infringe upon these rights, and we don't have to keep being on the defense for the Second Amendment, for free speech, or for anything else. We have to make sure that we are actually focusing on the policy issues that truly matter instead of allowing the Democrats to keep us on the defense. And we are having to, as conservatives, answer, well, why do we care about guns? And don't you care about the dead children? I mean, those object to the false premise of that statement. Of course, everyone who values human life cares about any sort of crime. But what we care about as well is making sure that justice happens for the perpetrators of crime, which the Democrats don't want. We saw last night in California that a Soros-elected DA who has been soft on crime was actually recalled. This is a turning point in America, and especially in California, that we're seeing that these Democrat-led offices in the executive branch are actually being recalled because the American people are seeing what a disaster the lack of police enforcement and the lack of justice is resulting in America. So don't allow the Democrats to say that we're the ones that don't care about these dead children in Uvalde, Texas. We are the ones that actually care about punishing perpetrators and having individual responsibility for actions. Don't let the Democrats say that this is just about guns and that we care more about gun ownership than we do about school shootings. That is also a false premise. When you look at what Matthew McConaughey said, and he said, oh, American values need to be returned to society. Sure, that's true. But his solution is red flag laws. We care about our right to keep and bear arms. We care about the fundamental God-given right to self-defense because we care that we can protect ourselves and our families. We absolutely care that school shootings don't happen, but what we never do as an American society is punish an entire category of individuals based on one person's actions. Notice that whenever these types of shootings happen and they fit the Democrat narrative, then all of a sudden Democrats are calling for responsible gun ownership. They're calling for red flag laws. Never mind that more people were shot in a weekend in Chicago than were killed in the Uvalde shooting. Yet the Democrats never talk about that. They never talk about things that don't fit their narrative. They just try to put you and me on the defense and say, you need to get rid of your guns and you need to hand those over. You need to be more responsible, even though you and I have never committed any crimes or ever intended to, even though we have been responsible gun owners for our entire lifetime owning a firearm. So notice how they are trying to put you and me, responsible gun owners, into the same category as these incredibly mentally disturbed criminals. Don't let them do that. There are millions of law-abiding gun owners in this country, members of the NRA, members of churches, members of civil society, and citizens who, of course, are responsible with their guns. And these red flag laws are not going to solve the crime anyway, because the solution to these mass shootings is not to take away firearms from responsible citizens, but to punish criminals when they commit and perpetrate these atrocious acts. We never, ever punish well-meaning, law-abiding citizens as pre-crime and say that just because you may have a so-called red flag and that categorically puts you into this category that you may at some time possibly could commit an offense, therefore the government has the legitimate authority to remove your rights from you and to infringe upon them. I've never seen a red flag law that was constitutional. And the reason for that is because you cannot punish someone before they actually fully commit and perpetrate a crime. We even have what we call inchoate defenses in criminal law. And those inchoate defenses and inchoate crimes mean crimes that began, they may have been thought about, they may have even been planned, but if they aren't carried through into their full commission, then those crimes can't even be prosecuted because the individual stopped and willfully decided, I am not going to commit this crime. Our justice system understands that not only is due process required after the commission of a crime, but you can't punish someone in advance of them perpetrating a crime just because they may be, in the minds of some, likely to commit a crime. Imagine how dangerous that is if the left is successful in these red flag laws and these sort of pre-crime abilities that Matthew McConaughey tearfully was advocating for. Then anything that you and I do as conservatives, that the left and the Democrat DAs and the Democrat DOJ and the Democrat law enforcement don't like, they can then signal as, oh, that is a red flag and we need to take away your firearms. We need to take away your free speech. We need to take away your children. We need to take away all of your rights just because we think that you may be likely to commit an offense that we don't like. The danger of red flag laws is that no one can say with certainty that any person displaying any type of behavior is actually likely or guaranteed to commit an offense until a perpetrator actually carries it out. Now, of course, when you go back and you look at some of the history of these perpetrators, if they are writing on social media, I intend to commit this type of offense, or they are telling their teachers that they hate people, they're going to commit suicide, they want to go in and shoot up their schools, of course that needs to be dealt with. But that also needs to be dealt with on an individual basis, not because gun owners simply own firearms. The vast majority, 99.9% of gun owners in America have never committed a crime using their firearm. And so why are we punishing 99.9% of law-abiding American citizens simply because we all agree that we hate school shootings? The answer to this and to this absolute atrocity is not to punish categorically law-abiding citizens, but it's to make sure that we are dealing with the heart and soul of individuals on a social level. The Democrats are the ones that don't value life. They're the ones that want to have abortion on demand. They're the ones who have these TikTok videos of a mother who's holding her newborn child saying, I could have aborted you, but I chose life. She is playing God in that moment and telling her newborn child, who is fully human and has every right to life, that she could have chosen death for that child, but only by her will and her mercy is that child living. It's appalling and it's disgusting. So what do we think is going to happen when children are growing up in a society that so fundamentally doesn't value life that they think it can be cut off arbitrarily by a mother who simply doesn't think it's convenient to have a child? Or when we have things like physician-assisted suicide or completed life bills, just saying, you know what, I'm a burden to society and I've done all that I can, so I just want a physician to help me end my own life because I'm no longer of value to society of what society determines is valuable. This is man creating God, and this is man rejecting the imago Dei, or the image of God that is clearly present in every human being. We are all human beings made in the image of God and have inherent dignity and worth. And our rights are pre-political and have to be acknowledged, not just as unalienable, but also pre-political, meaning that it doesn't matter what type of policy or social issue or even tragedy occurs in America. We have to address those individual situations with justice and with firmness and with law enforcement. But we have to understand that all of our rights for every citizen of this great United States of America has pre-political rights. It means that government, no matter who is in office, has absolutely no legitimate or moral authority to take away or infringe upon our rights in any way, shape, or form, absent due process and a law that is designed specifically to target criminal behavior, not to be so vague and overbroad that some of these just signs and symptoms of red flags can then be used and imposed upon wide swaths of people who will never in their lifetime ever commit a criminal offense. So Matthew McConaughey is being used and manipulated by the left purposefully to stand in front of the American people and do what he does best, which is acting. I think he's a brilliant actor. I love a lot of his movies, but all he's doing is merely acting. He's telling you an emotional story designed to have conservatives step back, be on the defensive, and suddenly say, well, wait, maybe we need to recontemplate gun control. That is the worst possible response for conservative constitutionalists and for Christians. The second worst response is to just always be on the defensive. We need to be standing up firmly and telling the Democrats and Joe Biden why their policy not only is an utter failure in the United States over the last year and a half, but why they are impeachable offenses. I have an entire podcast, if you haven't listened to it, that talks about why Joe Biden's actions have expressly and intentionally violated his oath of office and the obligation that he has to serve the American people under the United States Constitution. And he has to be impeached. Congress has a duty to impeach him. We need to be talking about these things. We need to be talking about culture. We need to be talking about the LGBT agenda, that you have open sitting legislators in states who want to implement bills that will require an LGBT 101 and drag queen story time, to have these twerking, disgusting, just sexualized idiots who are performing in front of children when parents are looking on and laughing and smiling. This is disgusting. It's sexualizing our children. These are the topics that we need to be talking about. Our Second Amendment is absolutely fine. And it's because no matter what type of legislation Congress is contemplating today, I guarantee you it is unconstitutional. And I and my colleagues will fight tooth and nail to make sure that that is not implemented and that it will be overturned in the judiciary. And I hope that the Supreme Court will have the courage to stand up and say no to Congress if they are overstepping. And that's exactly what the Democrats want. They want to overstep. They want you and me to feel guilty about owning firearms because of some 18-year-old kid who went in and committed this heinous act. I don't feel guilty about anything that I do as a law-abiding citizen, no matter if something that I own, something about my identity as a female, as a white person, as a conservative, as a Republican, any of those things just happens to be the same as someone who has committed a mass atrocity. So, for example, we're not trying to then outlaw or say that you have to have a waiting period before you can buy an SUV, just because the narrative about the Waukesha killing and this man who intentionally drove his SUV into a parade full of children, notice nobody's talking about that. Just because he did that, should I suddenly feel guilty about owning an SUV? No, absolutely not. And my government shouldn't say, well, it's a red flag just because soccer moms happen to own minivans and SUVs. We have to think through all of these things rationally, considered, and carefully. Do not be led by emotion. Do not be led by these stories, as horrendous as they are, to lead you to the wrong conclusions and to say that just because these atrocities are committed, that it's now okay that government infringes upon my rights and your rights as law-abiding citizens. We have to make sure that we are standing up at every moment and we are providing the correct analysis and we are pushing back and saying, no, I am a proud gun owner and I will not apologize for that. And Matthew McConaughey, as great of an actor as he is, that's all he was doing is acting. Don't fall for it. Think through these things rationally and considered and make sure that you are standing up firmly and you are standing firm for our United States Constitution. But even more than that, you are always going on the offensive and telling the Democrats, we are not just going to be defensive and standing back and letting you accuse us of all of these things and changing the narrative and now defending pro-life and defending the Second Amendment. We are going to continue to play offensive and we are going to have a conservative wave in November. And we are going to take back control of Congress and the state and local level and governor's offices, like in Pennsylvania with Doug Mastriano like in Arizona with Kari Lake, like so many others across the United States, and continue to recall these Soros-implemented district attorneys who are soft on crime. Point that out. Those types of law enforcement and the soft on crime and the soft on culture, that is what led to this mass shooting, not law-abiding citizens who are proud gun owners. So make sure that we are standing up. Do not let the Democrats distract you with emotional stories designed to get you to fall back and be quiet. Stand up proudly, speak for the Constitution, and continue to be bold in speaking truth. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. I also want to talk about another great American who is the sponsor of this podcast, and that, of course, is my good friend Mike Lindell. He has been canceled out of so many box stores for simply standing up for his own political opinion. And disagree or not, or support him or not, it is a fundamental right of every American to be able to voice their opinion, and that absolutely includes politics. That absolutely includes issues that are central to our culture. That includes faith. Mike is such a very sincere Christian, and I am proud to consider him a friend, and he is, of course, a friend of this show. So right now, there is a special on MyPillow.com. Click on the new radio listener specials. Get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including a great towel set, which is a 6-piece set. It includes 2 bath, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths, made in the USA, regularly $109.99, now just $39.99, but you have to use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. That tells Mike that you listen to this show, you're happy that he is a sponsor of this show, and you will get great discounts, but use the promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, either at mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna.